A cold afternoon in a small Canadian town changed everything. On February 10th, 2026, at about 1:20 p.m., the peaceful community of Tumbler Ridge in northeastern British Columbia was shaken by something no one had expected: a mass shooting at the Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. Tumbler Ridge is a quiet town with about 2,400 people, a place where neighbors know each other, and children walk safely to school every day. But on this afternoon, the ordinary became tragic. Police in Tumbler Ridge received a call about an active shooter at the high school, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, known as the RCMP, responded immediately. An emergency alert was sent out to the phones of local residents, telling people to stay inside, lock their doors, and shelter in place to stay safe while officers worked at the scene. Many families were shocked and frightened, unsure what was happening to their friends and children. As police surrounded the school and began their response, they found that this was no false alarm. The RCMP officers entered the building to locate the threat. During the search, they discovered multiple victims inside the school. They also located the person believed to be the shooter, who was found dead from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. This was a tragic and difficult moment for the officers and the entire community. When the full scope of the incident became clearer, the RCMP announced that 10 people were dead, including the suspected shooter. 6 of the victims were found dead inside the school, while another died while being transported to the hospital. Later, 2 additional victims were found dead at a secondary location, a residence believed to be connected to the shooting. The fact that more than one location was involved made the situation even more complex and painful for the town. In addition to those who lost their lives, many others were hurt. Police said that 2 victims were airlifted to hospital with serious or life-threatening injuries, and about 25 others were being assessed and treated at the local medical center for injuries that were not believed to be life-threatening. Emergency responders worked quickly to care for the wounded and reunite families with their loved ones. The shooting triggered an immediate lockdown of both the secondary and elementary schools in Tumbler Ridge, and students, teachers, and staff were kept secure while authorities continued their investigation. The Peace River South School District announced that both schools would remain closed for the rest of the week, giving families time to process, grieve, and begin healing after the terrible event. The RCMP's response continued throughout the afternoon and evening. At about 5:45 p.m. Pacific Time, the police emergency alert was officially canceled, indicating that officers no longer believed there were any outstanding suspects or ongoing threat to the public. This brought some relief, but the reality of what had happened remained heavy for everyone involved. Superintendent Ken Floyd, North District Commander for the RCMP, spoke publicly about the situation, calling it a rapidly evolving and dynamic situation, and acknowledging how difficult the day had been for the community. He expressed the thoughts and condolences of the police force to the families, loved ones, and all those impacted by the tragedy. He also emphasized that the cooperation from first responders, the school, and the local community played a critical role in how the response was carried out. In the immediate aftermath of the shooting, family members waited anxiously for news. Parents looked for word about their children, and friends waited to learn whether those they cared about were safe. Emergency services worked to evacuate the remaining students and staff, and reunification processes were put in place to help families find each other after the chaos. The town of Tumbler Ridge had never experienced anything like this before. School shootings are extremely rare in Canada, and this incident quickly became one of the deadliest in the country's recent history. Canadians across the nation were stunned and saddened by what had occurred in a community so small and close-knit. Canadian leaders responded with grief and support. The Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, issued a statement expressing deep sorrow and condolences to the families of the victims. He also expressed gratitude for the courage and selflessness of the first responders who risked their lives that day to protect others. Opposition leaders, including the leader of the official opposition, also shared their devastation and extended sympathies to the community and the loved ones affected by the tragedy. The provincial government of British Columbia also expressed support for Tumbler Ridge. The Minister of Public Safety said the province was offering all available assistance to local law enforcement and emergency responders as they continued to work through the situation. Additional police resources, including emergency response teams and victim services, were deployed to support the community and the ongoing investigation. In the days after the shooting, the community of Tumbler Ridge began the long and painful process of grieving together. Friends and neighbors supported one another, sharing memories of those lost and comforting each other during the most difficult moments. People who had lived in the town for years said the tragedy felt almost unreal, something that belongs in another place, not in a small Canadian town where everyone thought they were safe. Families who lost loved ones struggled to explain what had happened. Parents held each other in tears. Students tried to understand why a day of learning had turned into a day of violence and tragedy. Teachers and counselors worked to help the children make sense of the events, offering support and listening to their fears and questions. Because this shooting took place in a small town, the impact was deeply personal. Many students knew each other well, having grown up together. Teachers had watched their pupils grow over the years. Everyone, it seemed, had a connection to someone at the school, making the tragedy feel much closer and more painful than it might have in a large city. The emergency alert sent by the RCMP had described the suspect as a female in a dress with brown hair, but authorities have not released the name of the shooter, citing privacy and investigative reasons. At this stage, police are focused on determining the full circumstances that led to the attack, including how it happened and whether there were any warning signs before the incident. The lockdown and shelter-in-place order sent a clear message of urgency and danger. Residents were asked to remain inside their homes and refrain from leaving until police confirmed that it was safe. This kept hundreds of people off the streets and gave police room to manage the scene and protect the public as they searched both the school and nearby areas for additional victims or connections to the incident. In the hours that followed, the town remained tense. Families waited for news, and community members gathered in small groups, sharing updates and comforting one another. Social media carried messages of support from across the nation, with people offering thoughts and prayers for Tumbler Ridge and the families affected. Schools across Canada, watching these events unfold,
also began to re-examine safety plans and emergency preparedness. Although such incidents are rare in Canada, many educators used the tragedy as a reminder of the importance of having strong safety protocols and strong support systems for students and staff in place. Experts in public safety and psychology also weighed in on the national conversation. They spoke about the importance of understanding the root causes of such violence and emphasized the need for comprehensive mental health support in communities. They reminded the public that tragedies like this are not just about the event itself, but about the deeper issues that may have contributed to it, issues that are often complex and require long-term attention. Families began to plan memorials and vigils for those who died. Neighbors placed flowers, candles, and notes of remembrance near the school grounds and in other central places around town. These memorials became places for people to come together, share stories, and remember both the lives lost and the strength of their community. The shooting also sparked conversations on how society can better protect vulnerable communities and how emergency response systems can be improved to respond more effectively to similar tragedies in the future. Police agencies, school leaders, and governments began reviewing protocols and systems to find ways to reduce risk and better support those affected by such traumatic events. The people of Tumbler Ridge will remember this day for many years. They will remember faces and names. They will remember the sound of sirens and the moments of confusion and fear. But they will also remember how they came together as a community to face the unthinkable. They will remember the families who stood by each other, the neighbors who offered support, and the first responders who worked tirelessly to protect others amidst chaos. And while the full truth about why this happened may take time to uncover, one thing remains clear. This tragedy will be a defining moment for Tumbler Ridge, for British Columbia, and for Canada. The loss of life and the injuries suffered that day will not be forgotten, but the strength of the community's response reminds the world that even in the darkest moments, people can come together, support one another, and start to find paths toward healing and hope.